Okay, first off, I want to say that this is philosophy of science. I'm not trying to put forth scientific views. Like in all my videos, I want to inspire people to think. So today I'm going to talk about Einstein and some debates that he had with his contemporaries involving quantum mechanics. And basically quantum mechanics is that, and like I said, I'm not a scientist, but basically it's saying that there's not really order to the elements and what's happening in the physical space realm, or what happens in terms of the physical that we can detect through science. Whereas Einstein had more of a philosophy that there was a God who controlled nature, who controlled the elements, who knew what he was doing. He didn't leave it to random chance. He didn't leave it to some type of situation where things were kind of random. He believed in order, basically, as opposed to randomness, which quantum mechanics preaches, basically. Now, there were some specifics. Einstein eventually came to the conclusion, and he wrestled with this a lot all throughout his life. He basically said, God does not throw dice. Basically, look, God doesn't throw dice. It's order. It's not randomness. God doesn't play dice with the universe. He's controlling it. And a lot of his contemporaries disagreed with them. And there's a quote out there, and some people believe it comes from Fermi, or some people believe it comes from Bohr. And they basically told Einstein, stop telling God what to do with his dice. In other words, you don't know. And if God's ordered it that way, that's His choice. If there even is a God, basically they said you're presuming. You're really presuming. They're like, we're scientists and we're studying the data, and this is what we see, and you're presuming. And they were right to a degree, because Einstein had this vision of what he saw in terms of science, and he couldn't always explain it, but he believed in it. And he could never also prove it, but he still believed in it. And and I'm going to digress for a second, but Einstein, towards the end of his life, was really struggling, trying to find the theory of everything. He wanted to explain it. He didn't want to just believe it. He wanted to prove it, and he couldn't. He couldn't prove it. And some people believe that at the end, when he was basically bedridden and stuff, he really kind of put a lot of emphasis and a lot of emotion into trying to figure it all out. And he wasn't able to fully do that. But he basically, it consumed him. He really wanted to prove God doesn't play dice. He wanted to prove that quantum mechanics, although there were some elements that were studied and are true, that man can't really finish the thought because science can't go that far. But he was never able to do that. First of all, I also want to say that I think that the joust that these men had was a blessing. I think it was a very good thing. I actually think that Bohr was a blessing in Einstein's life. Einstein even said that Bohr was a man that just because he was in Einstein's presence, that he felt better. And if you live for long enough, you know that that's few and far between. That doesn't happen. I think that the whole relationship they had was a very good one, and I think it helped both men. Now, let me get on to what I want to say in this video, and I'm sorry it's taking this long, but basically, I think that according to philosophy of science, I want to add something, and I do this in humility, so please don't jump on my back too much, but I'm just trying to have a conversation, and this is what I think that could have been a good response that Einstein could have given Bohr or anybody else who had this train of thought regarding quantum mechanics. He would say, God doesn't play dice. And they say, hey, quit telling God what to do with his dice. And then to which Einstein would respond, fine, the dice are loaded. And I want you to think about that for a second. Because when the dice are loaded, then yeah, the game's there. You can throw them as many times as you want. You can have the illusion that, yeah, I'm playing the game, and hey, I can win, and I can make some money, and yeah, the numbers are gonna fall in my favor. But if you know anything about loaded dice, it's just a matter of time until everything ends up on the house's side. And I think that would have been a good response from Einstein, because I do believe that's a clear definition of how things work. I think the dice are loaded. I think that there is chance and there's luck in this world, in the universe, and I believe that it's all played out. And what people don't understand is no matter how you choose and no matter what choices you make in life, it's all going to end up on the house's side. You know, if you go to Vegas and you walk into a casino and you play their game with their dice long enough, you lose. I'm not going to say that Vegas is loaded with loaded dice. I'm not going to say that. But the whole idea of loaded dice means that you're playing the house's game. You walked into their house and you're playing their game. You know, you can have any ideas you want, but once you start playing that game and throwing their dice, you're in their world. Vegas wasn't built out of losing money. They were built out of making money. You might want to think about that. You know, Vegas is there right now because the house won. The house won. And the house wins. Go talk to anybody or read a book. The house wins. That's how Vegas stays in operation. They win. They win a lot of money off people. And God created this universe. God created the earth. God created the heavens. This is His house. And we're here, and we're subject to His rules and His ordinances. Just like when you go to Vegas, you're subject to theirs. If you're going to play their games and hold their dice, you're in their house and you play by their rules. Well, same thing. This is God's house. We play by His rules. And I do believe there's dice involved. I believe that there's a situation where you play. But at the end of the day, things are always going to fall on the side of the house. And I interpret that to be, you can make any choice you want, and you can study and do whatever you want, and you can, but everything is going to end up on God's side. That's the way He designed it. He engineered it like that. That's how He engineered this world. That's how He engineered you and me. And we can make any choice we want. We have a will to choose. I have a will to choose. You have a will to choose. We can make any choices we want. But it's interesting that in all that, it's going to end in God's favor. Do you understand that? Just like Vegas wins and you lose, you can make any choice you want. And God's going to win. And you're going to lose. The question becomes, are you going to join with the winning side? That's the only question. You know, God's going to win. Because although there are dice, they're loaded. They were loaded from the foundation of the world. They were created as loaded dice. And you can play your life out. You can allow your life to be played out. But at the end of the day, it's going to come down to the fact that you were in someone else's house playing their game. End of story. Okay? I don't mean to be brash or anything, but that's really how it works. And Einstein knew that. But he couldn't prove it. But he knew it. And it kind of really messed with his head because he was so, I believe he was so inside of science that he really couldn't see out. And, you know, when you look at it from a philosophical standpoint, then it's like you ask the right questions. Like I said in my earlier videos, you ask the right questions, you get the right answers. And, you know, I think that the conversation is interesting. I think that quantum mechanics, that there's elements we can't understand because we are not willing to accept certain things. I don't think science really attributes much to the spirit. And I believe that the spirit can be detected through science. I absolutely believe that the spiritual can be detected by science. But the problem with a lot of what people do is they don't attribute enough to the spiritual. And if you try to study science and study understandings and things that exist, and you're not willing to see the spiritual aspects, I think that you're going to miss a lot. And if I had to guess, if I had to venture and make a wild guess, I would say that we don't understand the universe and the way things really work because there's elements we don't consider mostly spiritual. And that's my take on that.